Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, will you guys help me thank my buddy Seth for giving us a little pre-music? Love some Seth Hardy. Well, good afternoon. Like I said, my name is Stephanie Ford. I'm the chief of staff here, and on behalf of our team at North Star, I want to welcome you to our Lunch with a Leader for this month. We've got a great crowd in the room, and I know I already just got some notes a few minutes ago from some friends of mine who are watching online, so welcome to those of you who are watching online as well. Before we get too far into our day, though, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to our friends at Chick-fil-A for giving us an amazing lunch. Appreciate them so much. And I ask this every time, and I'm looking across the room. I see a few unfamiliar faces. Who, show of hands, today is your very first time ever at a Lunch with a Leader? Anybody in here got a queue over there? Welcome. We're so glad you're here. So our purpose here at Lunch with a Leader, we want to encourage you. We want to invest in you. We want to equip you here in this room in hopes that you'll then take that back into your organizations and that you'll be able to equip and inspire and encourage them. And so what we do is we take a look at the life of someone in Scripture, and we sort of unpack a little bit. What did they do well? What are some lessons that we can learn from them? Maybe what did they not do well that we could also learn from them? And so in just a few minutes, Mike's going to come up. He'll take us through our notes. You've got these notes at your table. If you like a hard copy set of notes, you can grab one of those. And then also in just a few minutes, they'll put a QR code up. If you prefer digital, you can scan that QR code and take notes there as well. But as we get going today, this is a question that we have for you as a table talk. In a time of crisis, what do teams need from their leaders? So take a minute to talk about that, and then Mike will be up to get us going. Thanks again for being here.
Well, hello, everybody. If I have never met you before, my name is Mike Linch, and it is my honor to get to be here for this incredibly, I believe, important topic on how do you handle a crisis. And these aren't our ideas. I believe these are ideas from Scripture that God laid out for us. None of us like a crisis, but there's sometimes we have to get through a crisis. How many of you guys have lived to tell about, I survived a crisis in leadership? Raise your hand. All right, so we're all in here as survivors. Some of us may have more wounds than others, but we all made it through. So today our job is to take lessons from the life of Paul to apply them to our lives, and that's what we're gonna do. So would y'all join me in a word of prayer, and we're gonna dive in. Father, thank you for the amazing men and women around this room. Every month, I'm just humbled that they would carve out moments in a very, very busy schedule to get better, to learn more about you, and learn more about why you put them in the space and place that you did. So, Father, today, we don't know what we're all about to walk into. We don't know what we're all about to face, but maybe today is a little deposit, a little tool for our toolbox to help us be who you created us to be. So God, bless it, use it, and Father, I pray we walk out of here at 1 o'clock a little more equipped for the journey ahead. And Father, we pray this now in Jesus' name, amen. So, crisis, what is a crisis? Let me give you the Mike Linch definition of a crisis. It is not Webster's. This is the Mike Linch version. So you have notes on your table. You can use those. I know Steph told you earlier about the digital notes. A crisis is any storm that causes you to have to put your hands on the wheel. That's a crisis. It could be small, a small storm that you and your boat of leadership, you feel the waves coming and you've got to grab the wheel. And it could be a Cat 5 that's blowing through that if you let go of that wheel, your boat's going on the shore, right? That is a crisis. For all of us, our crisis look different. What I may consider a crisis, you may not consider a crisis. It's going to depend on your area of leadership. It's going to depend on what you do. But the reality is, we know we're in a crisis when we know if we let go, things are not going to turn out well. And the stretch and strain of leadership is holding on to that wheel and learning how to navigate through the crisis. God left us a great story in Scripture from the life of Paul. So let me set the stage here real quick. Paul was a prisoner. He is being shipped basically for trial. Paul gets in a storm on a boat he was not in charge of, but yet while he's not in charge of it, he does all of the right things. I love what John Maxwell said. Crisis don't make a leader, but a crisis reveals a leader, right? A crisis isn't gonna make you, but I'll tell you this about a crisis. A crisis will show if you're a leader. Paul is not even in charge, and Paul is gonna help navigate these guys on this boat to safety. So I think we can all agree in an organization, you don't have to have the title of leader to be a leader. Can we all agree with that? Sometimes the best leader don't even have the title, but they're the person everybody in the organization looks to when something's going on. So what was going on in this boat? And this is all out of Acts 27. So we'll give a little overview and then we'll dive into it. Paul is a prisoner on his way to Rome. His first blank there. He's a prisoner on his way. He's placed on a large grain ship with soldiers, sailors, and other prisoners. 276 people we know were accounted for on that boat. A violent storm hit, drove the ship off course, no control. The crew begins throwing cargo and equipment overboard just to stay afloat. So they're freaking and they're throwing stuff overboard just so they can stay afloat because they're taking on too much water. After many days without seeing the sun or the stars, which is important because that's how they navigated back then, right? They didn't have anything else. They used the sun and stars. They can't find it. They don't see it. They can't navigate and they lose all, and here's the word, hope of survival. Let's talk about this. So, crisis cause hope to be unseen. Can we all agree with that? When a crisis gets deep, you can't see hope anymore. You don't even feel hope anymore. You don't even know what to look for anymore. You're going, man, I'm flying blind. So this whole group of people, man, they've lost hope. And when you lose hope, you lose encouragement. And when you lose encouragement, you get discouraged. And when you get discouraged, you're in big trouble. The experienced sailors panic, right? Which we've all watched people do in crisis before. They panic. They flip, right? They don't know how to control themselves. The soldiers fear losing the prisoners, because if they lose the prisoners, they're gonna be put to death if they lose the prisoners. And the entire ship is filled with chaos and uncertainty. Boy, what two great words that describe a crisis. Chaos, uncertainty. Everybody's flipping, everybody's looking around, nobody's in charge. And in the middle of this, Paul, I love this, a prisoner with no official authority becomes the ship's leader. He's a prisoner. He's the one that should be looking to escape. I hope we shipwreck and I'm making a run for it, right? That's what I'd be thinking. I hope they all go down, and when they go down, I'll be free, right? That's not what Paul was thinking though. Paul becomes the leader and they eventually hit land, they're shipwrecked, but everybody survived. So what do we learn that Paul did that is so critical? So let's walk through this. I think this might be, so we've been doing this since January of 2018, Andy, was our first official launch. We did it in 2017, we launched. This is my favorite lesson we've ever done in all the years we've done it. Because if you've lived and survived a crisis, you know how valuable these kind of tips are to get us through. Ready? Tip number one, principle number one, be vocal. When a crisis hits, the leader has to be vocal. Here's the danger. The danger is talking too much or talking not enough. Here's my problem. I am of the variety of talking too much. So sometimes the best thing for me to do is tone it back. Because if you come across too glib and positive, nobody believes you. Everybody thinks you're just making stuff up, right? But you've got to be vocal. You have to be. Look at what happened. Here's the passage. No one had eaten for a long time, which makes you hangry, right? You gotta eat. Everybody's gotta eat. Finally, this is great. This guy's a prisoner, remember? Finally, Paul called the crew together and said, men, you should have listened to me in the first place and not left Crete. You would have avoided all this damage and loss. But take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though the ship will go down. Now listen, as a leader, I want you to write this principle down. They need to hear from you. People's certainty will come from the steadiness of your voice. When you're in a storm, you want somebody holding the wheel to get you through. And you go, Mike, I am not qualified to do that. Everybody look at me. If God didn't think you were qualified to do it, he wouldn't have put you there. You were put in the space and place you've been put for a reason bigger than you. Now listen, when you go home, you may not feel anything of what you just told somebody, but while you're there, you've got to be vocal. Paul was visible and Paul communicated, therefore people looked to Paul. So what did he do? Ready? Say what you know. Say what you know. Here's what I know about our situation. In all of our situations, we have government officials, we have law enforcement, we have schools, we have private businesses, we've got nonprofits, we've got churches. Say what you know. People don't care that you know everything. They just want to know that you're aware of what's going on. Say what you know. Nobody's looking for you to have all the answers. They're just looking for you to own it. Say what you know. Here's the second thing. Say what you don't know. It is okay to go, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. I don't know, but I'll figure it out. So we just came off college basketball season, the Final Four. For years and years and years, Duke was the perennial power, right, with Coach Krzyzewski. Don't ask me to spell it, but I can say it, all right? So Coach K's in charge. He's the guy. So I was interviewing a guy on my podcast, Jimmy Dykes, who's one of ESPN's best announcers. And I was asking Coach Dykes, I said, what makes Coach Krzyzewski a great coach? He said, Mike, I'll give you a for instance. He said, they're playing somebody. I'm courtside, right by the Duke bench. They're down by 25 in the first half. And Coach K calls timeout, brings his team over. And this is what he told them. Guys, they're doing something, and I don't know exactly what it is yet. I got to get to halftime and look at film. But if you can keep their lead where it is now, we'll get a game plan. The second half, we'll win this game. And you know what he said they did in the second half? They won the game. You know why? Because the players trusted the coach. He said, I don't know what they're doing. He didn't make anything up. He owned where they were at. Say what you know, say what you don't know, and here's the next one. Say what you're gonna do next. People want a plan. And here's what your plan may be. The very next step, that's all you got. How many of y'all have had to make up a plan to tell people before? Raise your hand. God will bless that, won't he? I mean, sometimes we just gotta say, here's what we're gonna do next, because that's all you got. You don't even know. You're clueless too. It hits you sideways. You don't know what the next step is gonna be. I love what Napoleon Bonaparte said, a leader is a dealer in hope. You wanna be a leader in a crisis? You carry hope and you give it when you give plans, when you say what you know, when you say what you don't know. Number two, stay prepared spiritually. Mike, I don't pray a lot. Well, welcome to a crisis, you will. All right, so that's a crisis help our prayer life a lot, don't they? Because all of a sudden you find out I am not in control. I am not in charge. I don't have an answer for this. Everybody look at me. This isn't a leadership course. This is spiritual leadership. God put you where he put you for a reason bigger than you. So let's talk about this real quick. If we believe, which I think most of us in this room, I don't know where you all stand spiritually. If we believe in God, we believe that God knows the beginning and God knows also the what? Right, Alpha, Omega. So if he knows the beginning and the end, he knows how the whole thing's gonna turn out, correct? Am I right on that? He knows how it's all gonna turn out. Well, if he knows how it's gonna turn out, why am I the one trying to figure it out? Why am I not leaning into him who knows where I'm going to say, God, you already know. Show me what I need to know. Anxiety, get this, anxiety and anxiousness comes from the land of being out of control, which is what chaos is and crisis is. My job during a crisis is to hang on to the one who knows how it's gonna end. And everybody look at me. He will give you what you need when you're gonna need it. He's not gonna tell you how it's all gonna turn out, but he'll get you to the next step. You've gotta stay prepared. Look at what happened with Paul for last night, an angel of God, this is what he told the sailors. For an angel of God came to him, whom I served, stood beside me, and said, don't be afraid, Paul. You're gonna stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God in his goodness has granted safety to everybody sailing with you. So take courage, For I believe God, it will be just as he said. We will still be shipwrecked on an island. But basically what he's saying is, but we're gonna be okay. Here's your points. You don't rise to the occasion. You fail to your level of preparation. You better prepare spiritually for storms. They are coming. They never give you advance notice, but they show up. And if you're prepared, you survive. If you're not prepared, you feel the effects of what goes on. And here's what we don't know. We don't know how God uses even today's like today, and these notes are sitting on your credenza, right? And you look back and you grab them and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I needed. So I'll tell you this quick little story. In 2016, in fall of 2016, I got a call from a lady in Fayetteville that handled my mom and dad's finances. So when they got older and my mom and dad both retired, they're like, we don't want to be selling off everything we own for somebody's Bitcoin. All right, so we're gonna handle our finances. We're gonna handle it, give it to a lady, and she's gonna help us with it. And so, yeah, we knew that. They were fine. They were very independent, doing their own thing. And I get a call in October of 2016. And Yvonne goes, Mike, have you ever sat down with your mom and dad and talked about like where their money is and where their safety deposit boxes are and where the Social Security stuff is, and do they have safes in the home and their medicines? And I'm like, no, I've never asked them about all that. She said, Mike, you need to do that. I said, is something wrong? She's like, no, nothing's wrong, but they're in their 80s. Like, it would be good for you, David and Donna, my brother and sister, to know that stuff. So I called my mom and dad and said, hey, Yvonne's recommended we come sit down. And they were so mad. If we wanted you to know, we would have told you. I'm like, well, listen. Yvonne told us to do this. So this is November 2016. Yvonne told us to do this. So in a notebook, it's another notebook that I have identical to this. I still have the information there. I had all of Yvonne's questions and I wrote out all the answers. In February, my dad had a massive brain aneurysm, fell down the stairs and died. He had stuff in a safe my mom didn't know. I don't know how they've been married forever. And so, but he had like stacks of $20 bills in there. She's like, he was gonna leave me. Mom, he's 80, he couldn't drive, all right? And so I don't know where he was going, but you know what we learned? We learned preparedness. In May, my mom was gone, died of cancer, unexpectedly got cancer in April, died in May. That notebook saved our family because I had answers to questions I had never asked before. What was it? Preparedness for a crisis I didn't know was coming. I asked Yvonne that summer, I said, did you know something? She said, Mike, God woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to call you. And I'm so thankful she did. The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. Number 3, protect the unity of the team. I love this. The sailors tried to, the sailors, you got prisoners, soldiers, sailors, all right? If you were putting a group in charge of getting a ship to shore, do you want sailors, soldiers, or prisoners? Which one? Sailors, they're all trying to abandon. All right, that's how bad it was. The sailors were like, soldiers, prisoners, we're out, we're gonna head on. Look at what happens. The sailors tried to abandon. They lowered the lifeboat as they were gonna put it out for the anchors from the front of the ship. Paul said to the commanding officer, you will all die unless the sailors stay aboard. What was Paul doing? He was protecting the unity of the group that was trying to survive the boat. I love this point. Division never fixes itself. It spreads if it's ignored. Division never fixes itself. Unity during a time of crisis is massive, and here's why. We love to blame. Everybody's looking for somebody to blame, right? What does blame stand for? I heard this years ago from Rick Warren. Blame stands for being lame. That's what blaming is, right? You're just being lame. You don't want to own it. There's nothing I hate worse than excuses. Friday night in the dugout, or last Thursday at a baseball game, a kid got picked off and he comes in, I'm like, now listen. And he starts giving me all the excuses. And I'm like, stop talking, be quiet, and listen. He couldn't listen. Like he's going 1,000 miles an hour. Don't blame. Just you got picked off by a bad left-handed pitcher, all right? And so it's like, okay, just own it. Don't blame, because when you blame, it's gonna happen again, right? You gotta protect the unity of the team. How do I keep a team together? Ready? Put people first. This is so big for leadership. Give your team hope. Guys, we're gonna make it. Create shared ownership. We, not me. Give clarity. And address wrong attitudes and actions immediately. Number 4, lead by example. Paul urged everybody to eat. You gotta eat. You've been so worried you hadn't eaten for 2 weeks. Then he took some bread, he gave thanks before them all, and he broke off a piece and he ate it. They ate first, then Paul ate. Great book written years ago, Leaders Eat Last. He let them eat, and then he ate. Then everyone was encouraged, and they began to eat, all 276 of us who were on board. People will follow what you do before they follow what you say. You got to set the tone. If you act with calm, they calm down. If you act with faith, they gain confidence. And if you act with discipline, they find stability. So all of us represent different areas of leadership. Sometimes you can be having a crisis in your business and our world's okay. This particular friend that's in this room, if he's having a crisis, it probably means we're all having a crisis. He's been a part of literally every Lunch with a Leader pretty much since we started in 2017. He was in my original core group that started this. Chief Westenberger, how long have you been chief of police in the city of Kennesaw?
I've been chief now, I guess I'm in my 18th year, so.
Long time to survive being a chief. Most chiefs, it's a tough industry to be in because when you get a crisis, it's a crisis for all of us. What do you believe is most important that you do for your organization and our community when a crisis happens? What are some things you think are the most important things?
I think to start with, especially in public safety, is preparedness. It's hard to see what's coming around the next corner, but we can look at history and see what's happened in the past and build from that. Also, what's going on around our society and around the world. We've seen other communities have failure points and situations that occur, and you see how when they've responded in the not so best way, how things work out, and you see the successes as well. So being able to train our staff, prepare them mentally, and I guess also emotionally. You know, there's no crisis that you don't experience extreme emotion as you're going through it. So I think those are the main things that we've got to focus on.
Would y'all thank Chief Westenberger, not only for the answer, but for the great job he does in our community. Thank you so much, Chief. What I love about those men, we were talking outside earlier, when 2020 happened and just the crazy unsettledness of our community, those chiefs back during that time were meeting and praying together, texting each other constantly. It was unbelievable. And we don't think of it that way. But if they're experiencing crisis, guess what? We're all feeling the community crisis, right? And he and so many of our chiefs from the past in this community have just kept things steady. Number 5, you gotta be willing to make the tough calls. You gotta be willing to make the tough calls. There are times in a crisis you gotta do the hard thing. They made the decision to throw everything overboard because they're looking for solutions, right? Number 6, you've gotta stay present and see everyone through. It is very hard when you sit in that seat and you're ready to jump to and get off the ship. Your job as a leader is to hold that wheel through the crisis. You can't let go, because if you let go, everybody's fallen. I got a great friend. He's been a Delta captain for years and years and years, and he flew fighter jets. He said, Mike, I've done really well being a Delta captain. I get paid a lot of money to land the plane on 2% of the flights that nobody else can get that thing down. 98% it can probably land itself. But 2% of the time, if I'm not holding that steering wheel, we're not landing that plane. And sometimes in our leadership, hopefully you don't have 100% crisis. You might be the crisis, all right? So hopefully crisis come and go, but your job's get it down. So we've got a podcast. It's not releasing this summer, but we're gonna get to watch it today. This gentleman, his name's Jack Briggs. We got connected last summer. We recorded it a month or two ago, but it's coming out in June. He's a Major General, 30 years, Air Force, 225 combat missions. But the reason I wanted him, for 10 years, he oversaw NORAD, which was the defense of North America. So while we're all going to sleep at night, he's the one thinking about our borders, thinking about flights coming on and off on our continent, ships coming in. Now he works with university systems all over the world in securedness and preparedness. He's currently working at the University at Colorado. He was at New York University overseeing all their systems. He had two things he talked about in the podcast I think are really relevant. I promise you want a sheet of paper and take down some of this stuff from Jack Briggs. Check this out.
How do I get to that where I can make confident decisions at the moment? I like to ask 4 questions. And these 4 questions, I tell my staff, I tell my boss, I tell everybody. These are the 4, if it hits the fan, these are the first 4 questions we need to deal with. And already that reduces the temperature because everybody knows what's coming. Because I got the first step. In the military, when you're flying jets, we have a checklist that tells us, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. That's how that training keeps us from panicking. So if I've got a big decision, these 4 questions. The first question is this: what do we know? So I'm either asking my staff or my boss is asking me, what do we know? And I mean fact, like we absolutely know this. Not what we think we know, but what we know. And initially, that's going to be a very small number of things. That's a great question. But the second question is way more important. And the second question is this: what don't we know? Now, why is this important? This is magic. This is the elixir of solving a problem. If we have the willingness to ask our staff or to be asked, what don't we know? It does 2 things. The first thing is it allows me to trust the thing that you told me you know more. Because you know I'm going to ask you, what don't you know? So you don't have to make stuff up. The second thing that it does is it speeds up the decision-making process. Because you don't have to sit in your office and go, well, Jack's going to ask me this, or maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe that. No. You know what I'm going to ask you. And you know that I know you don't know everything. I'm giving you permission to not know stuff. And I force my boss to do the same thing to me. To say, well, what don't we know, Jack? Well, right now we don't know a lot. But the third question gets us to the next step, which is, what are we doing about it? So we've identified that we know some stuff. We've identified some stuff that we don't know. Now what are we doing about it? You can only really ask this question if you understand the decision-making process of your organization. You have to sit down and think about, how do we solve problems? Because you're asking, what are we going to do next? And when we do that, we unleash people to go out and innovatively solve the problem. Because we've identified that we don't know some stuff, and that's okay. And the fourth thing is I ask, who else needs to know? I want the staff to understand that they don't have to have all the answers. They can pull others in. But who else needs to know about this? And they may turn to me and say, hey, boss, we've lost a lot of power on the campus. we need to have a conversation with the folks at the utility company. Can you reach out to them? I certainly can. Right? But they're the ones who know the lateral, horizontal connections that we need to make either inside or outside the organization. So those 4 questions. Why we do this is because we want to change the vocabulary of a crisis. Because honestly, you don't solve a crisis. And me as the leader, one of the most important was I had to control my reaction. You can imagine that if we had something catastrophic happen, if I reacted up here, like a scale of low reaction to high reaction, if I react up here, all of my staff, the only place they have to react next is above me. Why? Because the psychology is, I got to show the boss I am at least as bought into, but probably more bought into than he or she is, to show loyalty.
Boy, that's good.
And commitment. So if I react up here, they're going to overreact up here. It's panic, right? So as the leader, regardless of the situation, I'm here, way down here. I'm forcing myself. Now, what does that look like inside? It looks like that duck on water where there's nothing going on above the water and everything's going on below the water. But you got to suppress that, right? Because now if I show up like this, everybody, if I'm low on the reaction scale, I give a ton of room for my staff to respond, do the things that they're trained to do, and not just panic. In a story. So when I was the commander in Afghanistan at Bagram, I was about a month, and I just had breakfast, and I had gotten my morning briefing, and I was going back up to my office in our command center, and I get called back down because there's an attack on the base, a large-scale attack. We've already lost some lives of people that have been attacked, and we're in a firefight to protect the base. I'm getting this from one of my aides as we're kind of walking in, so I'm walking down the stairs and he's telling me what's going on. I'm like, okay. I open the door to go into the operations center and every head turns to look at me. Here's the general walking in. They want to see where I'm at. They want to see what's he going to be. And I walked in, I took a breath before I opened the door. I walked in and I looked around and I said to everybody, all right, this looks like it's going to be a long day. I hope everybody had a good breakfast. Get at it. You could feel the tension in the room go, because a couple of things. One, I showed that even though I'm inside, it's like, boy, this is serious. Externally, I'm not panicked. Second, by saying, get at it, I'm showing them that I trust them to go do the thing that they know to do. I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm not going to tell them how to do it. They know what to do. Go do it. Right? That's an empowering thing for your team. Now, you can't do that if they're not trained.
That's right. That's right.
So you have to be thinking about, how do I train my team to be ready? This is one of those 10 decisions to make in a year, right? Big one. If we hadn't trained on these things ahead of time, I wouldn't have been able to say, go at it, go get it, right? Go do your thing.
Okay, so we were only able to give you this much of that full thing, and you can tell there's so much just really rich, so many lessons to unpack in that. I underlined a few and I want us to talk about them in these last few minutes that we have. So the very first thing that he says, you got to change the vocabulary of a crisis. And what you couldn't see right at the end of that clip is he says, you don't solve a crisis, you solve problems. And this is straight from a blog he wrote. I'm going to just read this to you and then ask Mike a couple questions. He said, describing something as a crisis is really shorthand for something has happened and we don't have an immediate solution. But calling something a crisis doesn't give us a path forward. When leaders discipline themselves and use better language, they chunk a crisis down into solvable pieces as problems, regaining clarity of purpose. So, Mike, I want to ask you, just talking about those 4 questions that he asked, the what do we know, what don't we know, what are we doing about it and who else needs to know. Whether it's in your experience or as you work with leaders, which of those four do you think most leaders struggle with, and why?
I think there's two biggest struggles in that is, what do we know, right? Because sometimes we may know this. That's all we know. Like, it came out of nowhere. You didn't see it coming, and you know that, and you got to process it. So I think that's the part. Second part of that is, I think as a leader, when you're younger in leadership, you're always afraid to say what you don't know because you think it makes you look inferior as a leader. So you have this battle inside you, like, I don't know much, and I don't want to say I don't know because then I'll be replaced. Because we know this. Everybody look at me. If crisis turns out bad, you probably will be replaced, right? We understand that. So you're very afraid to go, guys, I don't know the answer to this. So I think it's like a battle between those two.
So he goes on to give sort of a personal application. Mike mentioned that he works with a university system, so he's working as the vice chancellor of University of Colorado. And so he talks specifically about how, they have these big snowstorms, and he said a lot of people, probably a lot of us, would call that snowmageddon, but they don't treat it like that. And he said, why? Because we know what's coming. We've already prepared. We know the parking lots need to be cleared. We know dorm entrances and dining hall. They're not unpredictable crises. They're expected problems. And because they're expected, we've built solutions, policies, and practices around them. And so I told Mike when I first watched the clip of this, and he talks at the beginning about, if a jet does this and you have a checklist, then if this happens, then you do this. And when I first listened to it, I was like, well, that's great if there's like an expected response. And so for some of you, you may work in systems that is what happens. If this happens, if the power goes out, we call these people. But what about those of us who are in the business of people? Mm-hmm. How do we get the practice to get to that point so that we do know how to react in those moments?
Well, I think part of it's keeping a checklist of what you've been through, right? So my daughter, this is a great example actually. My daughter last year for my birthday gave me a 5-year journal. So every day I write like this much about the day. So it's not too much, but it's a nice little capture of what happened a year ago today. Well, about a week or two ago, I was telling Ann, I do it at night before I go to bed, and I was looking at what was a crisis last year to me. And it wasn't a crisis anymore when I look back at it. I remember God's faithfulness to see us through that blip on the radar screen, and if he got me through that, he'll get me through this. Sometimes it's remembering. I think, how many of y'all pray a lot during crisis? Raise your hand. How many of y'all always remember God's answers during the crisis? Not always, right? We just are thankful for them, and then we move on to the next one instead of going back and look at how God came through for this. So sometimes our preparedness comes through, I don't know what this one's gonna come in looking like. James says they come dressed in various forms, trials do. They come dressed differently. They're all gonna look different. But the common points of it is, God's gonna see us through, he's gonna be faithful, and we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. And sometimes I have some friends in this room that on our the darkest day of my leadership life, the darkest, like lights out, I can't see my feet in front of me, helped walk me through that crisis so I could walk our church through that crisis. So sometimes God and Chief Westerberg and I were talking about this earlier too, sometimes God puts people around you to help you get through. That's why you can't do leadership by yourself. Because if it weren't for Mayor Alligood, James Albright, and Chief Dennard at that time, I wouldn't be sitting in this stool. They got me through so I could turn and help our church survive. And God puts all these people around our lives because he knows the crisis is coming. He knows you can't do it alone. So sometimes when we're in the people business, Our preparedness is the relationships he put around us that holds us up so we can keep leading.
So
Did I really answer the question?
it was
Not
pretty,
really,
it was
but
good.
anyway,
It was
so
good. It was good.
I made up my own answer.
It was good. No, I just want to, just to go back on that for a minute though, I think those of you who have ever had a conversation with Mike though, you know that he is such a relational leader, so that he really sees you and hears you and knows you. And so in a time of crisis, you feel like you could come to him because he sees you in that. And so I agree with that relational side of it. Another thing that he says, that Jack Briggs said in this blog post I read was, he said, when you change the energy of the situation from trauma to drama. So he said, trauma is when people are hurt, things get broken, reputations take a hit. Trauma feels out of control. Drama is an emotional reaction to something uncomfortable, but if put in perspective, can be managed successfully. And so you have to reframe that for them. So I want to take that and kind of turn it into the other point that he said about the leader's reaction sets the ceiling. And maybe we'll close on this because I know there's a terminology you've used with us recently too about leaders bring the weather. And so maybe as we kind of wrap this up today, just talk a little bit about the importance of how we respond and then what our team does with that.
Probably one of the greatest leadership quotes I ever heard, Ronald Reagan, when he was running for president. They said, "You've been an actor. How does being an actor prepare you for being president?" And he said these words, "Every day I'm going to have to get up and act like president." I think it prepared me well. And you know what? There's a lot of truth in that. There are sometimes you don't feel your position, but you have to live how you don't feel. If we come in, I love what Jack said, if we come in here, dude, the organization's gonna be here. We as a leader, so we have a good friend, Jack Llewellyn. Jack used to always say on a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being the highest, almost crazy. If we go to 11, we're gonna burst into flames. He said a great athlete has to learn to live at 8 and 9, right? If we can't go over 10. As a leader, I would tell you, we have to live at 6 and 7 when we feel 15 in our chest. And we'll tell you, when I get home, I'm not always what I presented all day, right? Because it's exhausting to pretend. I don't want to say pretend's not the right word. It's exhausting to go, I don't feel anything I'm saying, but I know I'm supposed to and I've got to because everybody's dependent on it. And so for us, I think in leadership, if I watch people, I can watch leaders and see how they handle a crisis and tell you the level I believe they can get to in leadership. Because if they go right here on any little thing that goes wrong, how in the world are they gonna handle anything big? They're gonna combust. Great leaders, you see it in small things, they're like, I don't know the answer, but we'll figure it out. We're good. That's what you're looking for. And you grow into that. Some of that's maturity. This is what y'all may know, Steve Roach and I have known each other since 2nd grade. That's something I've had to grow into because I'm a combustible personality. Like I can go 0 to drama fast. And so, but that doesn't work in my role. That does not work. And ask Casey on a baseball field. I can go there quick, all right? And so it doesn't take a lot. But you can't lead there because nobody wants to follow it. You look manic, like you want somebody that we're good. We got this. When our community went through a crisis back in 2020, I mean, it's blowing up all over the country. It didn't blow up around here. Why? Because you had Chief Flynn, Chief Westenberger, Chief Dennard, and our other chiefs in Cobb County got together, Cox, and said, we're gonna live here. And guess what our community did? It lived here, and we survived it, and we got through a crazy time with COVID and all the things that went on then because you had people that went, we're good. We're gonna get through this. And it leveled our whole community. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think the lesson in all of this today that I heard that so much kind of just sticks with me is the part about keeping your team unified. And so I think everybody in here leads a different team, and you have a different personality. And even as we started, a crisis for you may not be a crisis for them. And so the more that we can do to deposit these conversations and this training, so that, as he said at the end, you can say, I hope you had a good breakfast, go out and get to it. What a great place for us to be as leaders, and what a great place for our teams to be able to feel like we trust them and that they've been empowered to go and do the work. So will you help me thank Mike and just all the content from the day? Let me close this in a word of prayer, and we'll end with a couple announcements. God, thank you so much for these lessons that you've given to us today, God, both through scripture and just through the leaders that you've given to speak into us. God, I pray that we would take these lessons today now, and that we would apply them, whether it is in our homes, our businesses, just our leadership opportunities, and God, that we would just grow closer to you in the process. So thank you again for all these people that are here today. God, I pray that you bless their time back to them as we leave here today. In your name I pray. Amen. Well, let me just give you a couple quick announcements. The first one is, if you signed up for headshots on our form ahead of time, Sarah's going to be out in the lobby, and we would love for you to stop by and take advantage of that if you signed up for that. Second, we've got a QR code that's going to go up. That's for the Leaders Toolbox. This is a place where you can get some of the resources sent back to your email inbox. If you've already opted in, you don't have to do that again, but I do want to let you know that that is up there. And then finally, our final lunch with a leader of this semester, we'll follow that school calendar, will be May the 11th. That's the day after Mother's Day. Pro tip for you, if you didn't know that was the day after Mother's Day, maybe mark that in your calendar too. And hopefully we will see you then. Bring a friend with you. But thanks again for being here. Thanks to you who watched online. You guys have a great day. You're dismissed.